the idea that monarchies are inherently authoritarian is just untrue.
What?
The most authoritarian governments in history have been Republican governments. If you look at Britain, the history of Britain, the most dictatorial leader in our history was a man named Cromwell. He was not a monarchist. He, in fact, killed a monarch and took over as a Republican leader. He was the Republican leader. And that's, well, at the time they used the word Commonwealth, but that's something people tend to forget. Britain used to be a republic, and it was a dictatorial republic.
So, right off the bat, I don't have much experience debating monarchists, but I think I already see where this wagon is circling. The first thing to understand is that when you're talking about, like, well, is a monarchy bad? Is it, like, more dangerous or whatever? We're not, like, the way the person obtains their power is irrelevant, right? If a nation is controlled by a single individual, it really doesn't matter whether they got there through hereditary right, through divine appointment, through whatever. It's like we're talking about a one-man, you know, like, ruled government. So the question is, what incentive structures does this allow for or lead to? Like, what are we building here in reality? Yeah, because Cromwell was a dictator. It's not like Cromwell was some kind of, like, you know, he uses the term Republican because Republican is like the great enemy of monarchists, right? You know, but it's not like he was like a fucking Democrat or whatever. It's really just a matter of authoritarianism and the incentive structures put therein. It's an aesthetics thing, you know. If I'm ruled over by like a one-man party or leadership or whatever, I don't really care whether they got there by blood right or by having a bloody coup or whatever else. In fact, you know what? I'm actually going to agree with one thing said by the human pet guy. I will agree with one thing said here, which is that by manner of just pure stability, the reason that we as a species settled on monarchies for so long as a default form of governance is because having a hereditary bloodline to determine who came into power next was a stabilizing force. You wouldn't have as much question as who comes next, though certainly people still fought over it, of course. So if you're going to have, like, a one-man leader anyway, if you're going to have a Stalin or a Hitler or whatever the fuck else, fuck it, do it by bloodline. It's easier than whatever other system you're going to use. At least that's simple. It's a little bit less ambiguous. Obviously, I would prefer there not be a dictatorship. That would be great. But if you're going to do a dictatorship, you know what, fuck it. Have it be a king. You know. But I'd prefer no dictatorship.
The king is covered by sovereign immunity. Like, he cannot commit a legal wrong. He's immune from civil or criminal proceedings. That is authoritarian.
Yes. Do you not have the exact same thing for your government? In fact, you have more than that because...
What do you mean my government? I live in Northern Ireland. We have the same king.
Then what are you complaining about?
What?
Complaining about the fact that they're immune from the legal system.
Yes, but the exact same thing happens under Republican governments as well. That's a basic principle of separation of powers. And in fact, I would argue that republics are often go further than that. If we look at the United States of America, for example, which is a republic, we can agree, a democratic republic, in fact, a constitutional democratic republic. Hunter Biden is functionally immune to prosecution.
Oh, man. If I had, like, a bingo checklist for this, it would not be monarchist complains about Hunter Biden. Holy shit. Yeah, dude, an absolute monarch having complete immunity to the law is exactly like Hunter Biden not getting arrested for the crime of having a meaty cock or whatever the fuck he did. Jesus Christ, his girthy 9-incher is immune to the law. You claim to defend the principles of democracy and the republic, but this girthy meatbat's not seen 1 ounce of justice. No sirree.
Because plenty of monarchies throughout history have been significantly more free than many republics. Why do you think monarchies are inherently authoritarian? Argument. And if you do think that, why would you have left a republic to come and live under a monarchy?
I never lived in a republic. I'm from Canada. I lived in a monarchy, and then I moved to a different monarchy.
Okay, well, hold on. Wait. Let's not pretend that England and Northern Ireland and such are monarchies. I know that we like to say that as like a flippant turn of phrase. You know, like, oh, because they have a king. Like, no, that's not how their government works. The monarch still has power. They don't have no influence. But let's not pretend that, like, the central mode of power, you know, in these countries, like, this is a system of a monarchy. Like, no, the decision-making is done through the republic. You would be surprised. No. I'm not saying that the queen has no power, or king now, whatever, I don't give a fuck. I'm not saying the monarch has no power, but, like, let's not pretend that the apparatuses of this country, the decision-making that is being done, is the decision-making of a monarchy. Like, that's how this is all working. Like, come on. That's just a constitutional monarchy? No! A constitutional monarchy is a system in which the monarch is making the decisions and is bound by a constitution. Okay? The decisions that are made in the UK, in Canada, in such and such, are not decisions made by the king, okay? The king is just off touching little boys. That's what he busies himself with. Like, please, let's not, like, literally pretend that, like, what system of government does the UK have? Oh, they're a monarchy, even though all of the decision-making and power meaningfully is held by the PM and such and such.
The big benefit of having a monarchy, one of the big benefits, is that you get to have a non-partisan head of state.
I mean,
I think a very good thing to do.
The UK is in an abysmal place compared to even the Republic. Leaving the EU, Brexit was such a mistake. They have seen like
Why was it a mistake? Our people voted for it. We had a direct referendum.
And
why would he care about that? What? Why would he why would his ideology care about whether or not there was a referendum on that particular issue? Like I've said before, it's like the innate incoherence of authoritarians, you know? Have you ever noticed that, like, authoritarians are some of the most populist LARPy people out there? Like, there will be, like, people openly saying, like, we need to get rid of, like, the rule by majority, blah, blah. And then, like, you look at their politics or whatever, it's like, they just completely believe in the suspension of democracy. It's like, what do you... But then they're, like, screeching about how, like, the people rose up for this or something. I think a lot of people, it's just kind of like the cuckold brain of the authoritarian, where, they all want, like, to be parented. Does that make any sense? I think a lot of them are just weak-minded, and they just want, like, a daddy, basically. They want a king because they want, like, a big daddy to look up to. And I mean that. I genuinely mean, like, I really do think that's, like, a primary motivator in their decision-making. They're weak, and they want, like, an icon to look up to. Vaush, people are monarchists because they believe the nobility are intrinsically smarter, better, and more capable of them. Oh, I actually disagree with this. I think that was the case before, but now I think that people are monarchists because they believe that they are smarter, better, and stronger than all the peasants beneath them, and that under a monarchy, a person like them would be in charge. They look at the government and they disagree with decisions being made, and they think, if someone like me was in power, the world would be so much more sensible, so much more safe, so much smarter. Now, a lot of them understand they wouldn't literally be the king or the nobles or whatever. Like, they don't believe... Some of them are that delusional, but not all of them. I think most of them understand they wouldn't be. But they think, like, okay, maybe they wouldn't be the guy in charge, but the guy in charge would be, you know, like them, and that's enough for them. That makes them think, like, oh, okay, well, as long as I got that, it would have all been worth it, basically. And I think this guy is one of those guys, right?
You talked about China. When has Red China, ever had a referendum?
Red China.
When has the USA ever had a referendum? How often do republics have referendums, Keffels?
What? Wait, what? Referendums are held at a state level. We have state-level referendums all the time. Like, constantly. Why does he insist on saying Red China? Because his, oh man. So, obviously, it's in a completely different way, but this guy has a destiny brain, where one of his primary motivators for political engagement is the reaffirmation of his feeling of intellectual superiority over others. Now, Destiny can talk his way around this guy for sure, no doubt about that. This guy has to rely on the British affect. He has to rely on, like, the having a monocle, you know, and you know, like that bullshit. So he says Red China, and he deliberately uses anachronistic terms to describe his ideals because he's trying to, like, evoke that aesthetic of, like, aristocratic intelligence. Of course, China went red, you know, in the 50s, and by that point, republics had long since taken over the West, but, you know, whatever.